You ever read something so bold that you have to double check that you're still awake? Well, an analyst just called XRP the biggest opportunity of our lifetime, and yeah, he went further. He said 100 XRP could one day buy a luxury mansion. Now I know, right? But before you kind of laugh that off or even mortgage your own soul, hear me out. I was up way too late on July 17th, scrolling through market chatter, half watching price feeds and half considering whether caffeine counts as a stablecoin. But Bitcoin had done that record-breaking run all the way up to an all-time high of $123,000 and at least $900 back on July 14th, right? And then it kind of slipped more than 3.81%. When the king, coin trips up, altcoins usually faceplant, right? But that's the script. Only XRP didn't read the script. Instead, XRP shrugged, dusted itself off, and showed up in the shortlist of the top 20 crypto assets with the strongest weekly gains. Now that alone, it caught my eye, right? Markets run on math after all, but they also turn on mood. And resilience during a pressure event can cause, or at least I should say, change how traders even size their risk. So I start kind of pulling up the charts, checking the 7-day change and thinking, okay, is this just a reflex dip buying, or is there actually a deeper story brewing inside the XRP crowd? And this is then where I saw Bark's comment. Now, if you've spent any time in crypto Twitter, tunnels, there's always someone screaming to the moon, right? Now, this felt a little bit different. Bark didn't just toss out a meme number. He actually said he literally couldn't stop thinking about XRP. Right? He's watching the token move, refreshing on-chain metrics, scanning the headlines. Right? Basically, XRP is living rent-free inside this guy's head. And then that line, he called XRP the biggest opportunity of our lifetime. Now that's emotional, sure, but emotion is data of sorts. It kind of tells you where the conviction is coiling. Now, conviction without a thesis is of course just noise. So what's kind of feeding this conviction? Well, the XRP community has been floating a cluster of different catalysts, and whether you agree or not, these are the ideas that are driving the story. 1. XRP possibly being used by financial institutions for cross-border settlements. 2. A wider crypto market that keeps expanding and deepening liquidity. 3. The potential that someday for multiple exchange-traded funds that track XRP directly. Now, you stack those in people's minds and you kind of get a narrative engine that can pull capital towards it. Narratives go hand in hand with price action, and the last few days gave that narrative some fuel. So on July 14th, the same day that Bitcoin tagged an all-time high, XRP reclaimed the $3 level. That was a psychological milestone. Then the broader market wobbled, selling kind of rolled on through, and XRP slipped back to under $3. Now that should have cooled the room, but instead today, July 17th, at the point of recording, XRP kind of clawed its way back above $3 even without any kind of fresh blast higher from BTC. Now that decoupling vibe, that's the traders notice, right? That's what they notice. All right, so when I'm kind of tracking this rebound, the numbers start stacking. XRP changing hands around $3.25. Although I did see this go all the way up to around the $3.60, right? It's been up about 10.3% in the last 24 hours at the point of recording, and it's been a pretty wild 33.1% over the last 7 days. And zooming out just a little bit, up to 46.79% over the last month, although I think it's actually exceeded a lot of that by now. Now, those are, of course, the kinds of percentages that make even kind of jaded market nerds kind of sit up a little bit straight. Now, you can feel the room kind of warming once again. And that's kind of when Bark lobs the next one, right? He thinks that we'll never actually see XRP trade under $3 again. But this is pretty common with Moon Boys, right? Now, even here, right, he's kind of calling for a run towards $10 and beyond. Now, if you're kind of hung around my channel for a while, you know that I love enthusiasm, but I also keep a caution kind of bucket nearby. Lines like never under X again are famous last words across every asset class from internet stocks to tulip bulbs. Trust me, there's been lots of people who said we would never see, XRP under $1 again. And then of course, February, March happens, right? Still, when someone kind of plants a flag like that, you get to kind of watch how the market respects or humiliates it, right? And it becomes a living sentiment line. And Bark doesn't just let it sit there. Right? He points out that people had a window, right, when XRP was under $3 to load up, right? There's always that kind of sting of the I should have traded. We've all kind of got a slice, at least maybe even a scar tissue, right, from hesitating right before liftoff, or, I guess aping in right after gravity kind of hits, right? The difference between those scars and the long-term learning is whether we actually process what happened or just slap blame on the market kind of gods, right? Now, let me talk about the big, spicy, internet-catching soundbite then, right? Bark's claim that 100 XRP could eventually buy a multi-million-dollar luxury mansion. You can pause, you can breathe, nobody's handing out castle keys just yet, right? What's valuable about that statement? It's kind of like, is that it isn't, I should say, the literal kind of blueprint to a beachfront estate. It's the reminder that crypto investors traffic in asymmetric dreams, right? The upside stories are always outsized because of the downside, right? Losing your stake. And is kind of painfully real and, of course, fast. So, the mind swings the other way too. Mansion money, freedom money, quit your job money, right? And that's kind of the emotional leverage that keeps communities glued together through all of the volatility. But if you're kind of new to XRP and you hear mansion math, you might try to reserve engineer, or at least maybe even reverse engineer some of the kind of price per token targets in your head. Now, I'm going to stop you right there because the article that I'm referencing today that kind of got me all thinking about this stuff didn't and doesn't lay out any numbers of past current price levels. It just gives us the sentiment of what's going on, the catalyst that might actually gear things up, and the kind of fresh move back, above the $3 level. That's enough data to kind of frame risk conversations without making stuff up, right? So when we kind of get future hard numbers that extend the kind of story, then I'll bring them to you. But for now, we must stay grounded in what's actually on the table. So here's kind of where my brain goes, right? What does opportunity of our lifetime even mean for regular people like you and I trying to build a position sensibly? Well, for me, it's less about calling the next exact future dollars and more about the at least identifying some spots where conviction, community, and catalysts are going to overlap. Right? XRP's recent resilience, while Bitcoin kind of pulled back, that's a great one signal, right? The renewed push over $3 after a bit of a wobble is another. And the community's running story about institutional settlement and possible ETFs narrative kind of reinforces all of this. So they stack all of those and you've kind of got a case to study position sizing, not a green light to go all in, of course. And you know what else? I love sanity checkpoints. I've literally kind of talk out loud about this stuff all the time. I say things like, if this drops 50% tomorrow, am I sleeping? If the answer is no, then I size down. And if the answer is yes, then I set an alert and I just move on, right? And speaking of alerts, of course, here's a quick plug. I use Kraken Pro for some of my trading. And yes, the Kraken Pro link in the description is an affiliate link that supports the channel here when you use it. It costs you nothing extra. It just helps keep the lights on here and lets me keep bringing you these long, rambling midnight market breakdowns. But let's go ahead and circle back to the community angle, because XRP has one of those most persistent online tribes in crypto, right? Now, Bark's emotional attachment is not a solo act. There are a lot of people who genuinely believe early XRP positioning could lead to substantial returns further down the line. Whether or not those returns reach the mansion tier, community belief can create self-reinforcing liquidity. People hold, people buy dips, people talk, and new eyeballs come on in. So momentum feeds the narrative, and narrative feeds the momentum. Chicken meets the egg. Yet still, enthusiasm, it needs a seatbelt. And that is where I kind of lean on this process, right? Tracking the on-chain metrics, even at the simple level of watching address activity trends, helps me kind of see whether attention is translating into action, right? Scanning news flow, keeps me aware of any developments around those kind of cited catalysts, institutional settlement experiments, market structural growth, chatter about products like ETFs tied to the token. And watching horse price behavior around round numbers like $3, it clues me into how traders are anchoring themselves. None of this, of course, guarantees anything, but it keeps me grounded while everyone else kind of argues about what mansion they're buying. Now, speaking of grounded, we do need to talk about risk, because the sharper the upside story, the easier it is to forget about the trapdoor, right? Crypto can flip red faster than a fire alarm, right? And Bitcoin's own whiplash this week is proof of this, right? You can wake up tomorrow and see XRP under $3 again. You really could. Now, Bark says never, but markets will decide that for him. So build your own plan around what if I'm wrong, not just what if I'm rich. And this one might just shock you, but I'm not a financial advisor, and there's nothing in this video that is financial advice. After all, cryptocurrencies are highly volatile, and you should always do your own research, right? And because you could lose all of the money that you invest. As I said, you should do your own research and consult a qualified professional. After all, right, your investments are entirely your responsibility. And you should know that nothing is ever guaranteed when it comes to investing. Neither I, this channel, nor YouTube are liable for any losses. And this video really is just for entertainment and educational purposes only. All right, now that we've kind of cleared all the legal fog, let's kind of stretch this thought experiment a little bit. Imagine two viewers. Viewer A saw XRP under $3 but froze. Analysis paralysis, maybe waiting for a safer entry, right? Viewer B, they set a plan. They buy a little under $3, they buy a little bit if it rips over $3, and they recheck every single week. Fast forward to July 17th, with XRP around, $3.25 or $3.60, whatever it was, and, rising percentages in every kind of short window that we just covered, right? Who feels calmer here, right? Not the one who kind of waited for the perfect certainty. Markets have rewarded the prepared action more often than the perfect timing. As they say, it's time in the market, not time in the market. Now, I am not saying that Bark's $10 target is destined, right? All I'm saying is that price levels become emotional magnets. So when we kind of crossed $3 on July 14th during that big market high, it kind of put a kind of thumbtack on the map, right? Then we kind of lost it. People kind of marked it the failure. And, then we reignited it without even Bitcoin sprinting, right? Now, the levels kind of glow brighter during all of this. And traders watch whether $3 was going to hold on the retests, right? Long-term holders watch whether threes become the new psychological floor. And statements like never under $3 again, they latch onto all of that energy. So if $3 does indeed break, expect some drama. And if it holds, you should probably expect some chest thumping. But let's go ahead and talk about time horizons, right? A lot of viewers ask, should I think in days, weeks, or years? And the data that we have today kind of shows moves across a day, week, and a month, right? Up 10-ish%, up 33-ish%, and up 46-ish%, right? Retrospectively. They're short windows, sure, right? but that's heat, not history. So when someone frames XRP as a lifetime opportunity, they're actually zooming all the way out beyond the 30-day arc here, right? And the tension between the near-term volatility and the long-term belief is where most portfolio anxiety actually lives. So accept that the tension that you're going to see, and you should probably suddenly stop twitching every 5 minutes if you zoom out far enough. So let me give you a quick personal comparison here, right? Years ago, I used to watch a different coin really rally hard. I got the FOMO, I piled in way too much, and then I watched it kind of roll over. Now, I had no plan, just pure vibes. Now, the loss kind of felt bigger than the dollars because I'd attached a life upgrade fantasy to it. Now, Bark's mansion line triggered that memory for me, right? It's a shiny picture that can hijack your risk brain. Now, when I hear wild upside claims that I cover on this channel a lot, I translate them into position checklists, right? What percent of my total crypto stack is this? What price alerts really matter? And what would make me add, trim, or just simply hold? Now, community kind of helps with all of this discipline. So by the way, if you haven't already joined the free educational Discord server, the link is in the description below. You can jump on in. Now, we talk through position sizing frameworks, emotional traps, and yes, we meme the mansion thing because laughter lowers the stress levels. Now, the point isn't kind of groupthink, it's actually shared process, right? Hearing how others handled the move over and under $3 might actually save you from blowing up your own plan. Now, while of course we're doing some housekeeping here, here's a quick reminder once again. If you trade on Kraken Pro and you use my affiliate link that is in the description down below, well, it supports the channel here. Now, I always disclose that because transparency really does matter. So when you click that link and sign up or even make a trade through it, a portion comes back here so that I can spend more time digging through the price action, reading the articles, like the one that we're kind of breaking down right now, and giving you the full story instead of surface takes. So if you're already set up somewhere else, there's no pressure. You do whatever works for you. Okay, let's zoom once more to the psychology of calling something the biggest opportunity of our lifetime, right? People are going to reach for this kind of narrative when the numbers in front of them kind of feel like the opening credits of a much bigger film. Now, XRP ripping into double-digit percentages in a single day while holding monthly strength and doing it after a market wobble kind of triggered by Bitcoin's pullback from a fresh all-time high. Now, that kind of sets a very dramatic stage. So even if the next act is a correction, the drama seeds belief, and belief is sticky capital. But belief alone, it cannot buy that mansion, right? Execution does. And execution in markets often boils down to the boring habits. Review your entries, track your average costs, schedule your check-ins, and decide what story you're actually trading. Are you trading the July price momentum? Are you accumulating because you think institutional settlement flows one day will matter? Are you speculating that an XRP-focused ETF will pull in the big money? Or are you just here for the memes and maybe a moonshot? They're all valid, but each needs a slightly different risk bucket. So let me kind of tackle a small contradiction that I've been wrestling with as I kind of read the community threads. Now, on one hand, people say that XRP will change everything, and you barely need any to become wealthy. Hello, 100 XRP mansion meme, right? And on the other hand, some of those very same folk are tracking every kind of fractional move over $3 like scalpers. So, which is it? Life-changing long hold or intraday thrill ride? Now, it can't be both at the same time for the same coins, right? Resolve that kind of contradiction in your head and your stress levels do plummet. Keep separate stacks, a long conviction stack that you barely touch and a trading stack that you actively manage. Simple, but not easy. And another thought is that market commentators like Bark act as amplifiers, right? When he says says that he can't stop thinking about XRP. He's telling thousands of people it's top of the mind. Now that attention can become action, even if only a slice of people buy, right? That extra demand during thin liquidity pockets can move the price, which validates the attention, which then loops back. So attention reflections are actually real, right? And so when you see emotional language, you don't want to be dismissing it straight away. You need to translate it. You need to ask what behavior could emerge from people hearing this. So let's go ahead and revisit the kind of concrete number one more time, because repetition cements the memory, right? Bitcoin tagged $123,000 on July 14th. Then it slipped more than 3.8% in one day. Now, during that fallout, many altcoins sagged, but XRP showed relative strength and landed in the top 20 for weekly gains. That same July 14th, XRP reclaimed $3, lost it in the sell-off, and then as of July 17th, it was back above $3.25. I think it pushed up to $3.60 at one point. That was up a good 10% in the last day, and up 23% in the week and 46% in the last month. Yeah, in the last month, right? So those are the raw ingredients feeding Buck's timeline opportunity farming, or framing, I should say. So from here, what are we watching? Well, first, does $3 hold on the pullbacks? Second, do we see momentum building towards Buck's psychological $10 beacon, even if that's months or even years out, right? And third, do any of these cited catalysts, that's institutional settlement chatter, broader market tailwinds, or products like XRP linked funds, surface in a way that market can actually trade? Now, even rumors move price, right? Confirmations move it even more. And again, we're going to be staying inside today's article's data so that we are, so these kind of are watch list items or themes and not claims of fact. Now, I'm going to wrap up this story thread with a bit of a mindset habit that I use when emotions spike, right? I label my trades by story, momentum, July 25, right? Long XRP narrative, speculative bark bet, whenever, at least whatever kind of makes sense. Now, when the label no longer kind of fits the reality, say price loses $3 and momentum dies, I relabel or exit. Now, that little trick keeps me from marrying a single trade just because a community that I like is excited about it. And so what does that, or at least where does that leave us today? Well, we've got an asset that's kind of weathered a Bitcoin stumble better than many perhaps even expected. We've got a vocal commentator who, can't get XRP out of his head and is calling it a lifetime shot. We've also got a community echoing the idea that early positioning really could matter, pointing to use case hopes or market growth and someday ETFs. We've also got a key round number level kind of tested, right? Lost and retaken. We've also got an over-the-top mansion metaphor that, if nothing else, focuses us to confront just how wide the guess range can actually be in crypto. And guess what? If you're holding XRP, maybe you're just thinking about it or just kind of rubbernecking the action here. Share where you stand, down in the comment section and over in that free educational Discord, the link down in the description below. And tell me, right, are you stacking under $3? Are you celebrating over $3? Or eyeing that $10 horizon with a mix of hope and healthy fear? I'm going to be there reading what you have to say and comparing notes with my own alerts. So whatever you do, just stay curious, stay skeptical, and size the market, like the market can always make a fool of you, right? Because guess what? It absolutely can. And that humility is how you kind of stick around long enough to see whether XRP's, or at least whether Bark's lifetime XRP opportunity, pays for that front door, a condo, or maybe someday a mansion. But for now, tap the subscribe and I'll see you in the next XRP deep chat. And of course, you can check out that video that's queuing up over there so you can stay up to date with everything that's going on.